Yo, what is up guys? It's me, Zach Lee. Every single year, there's always a couple of NBA teams that do much better than we predict them to do before the season started. Back in 2015, it was the Warriors and the Hawks, when both of those teams surprisingly won at least 60 games, and of course the Warriors went on to win the NBA championship out of nowhere. And in 2016, we had the Portland Trail Blazers. That was the year that they lost 4 of their previous 5 starters, and still made the 5th seed in the Western Conference. And even last year, there were a couple. Of course, there was the Houston Rockets. They went from a team that was the most disappointing team in the NBA the year before, when they only won 41 games, to one of the best teams in the NBA the very next year, when they won 55 games. And then you could even say the Milwaukee Bucks were a bit of a surprise too, especially since they still wound up making the playoffs after they had lost their second best player, Jabari Parker, due to injury. So like I said, every single year, there's always a team or two that exceeds expectations. And next year's not going to be any different. So today, what I'm going to be doing is talking about a few teams which I feel have the best shot at becoming the next team that came out of nowhere and was better than people thought they would be. Disclaimer, this does not mean these teams are about to be contenders or anything like that. I know, right? Trust me, it's one of those things where it kind of sounds crazy at first thought, but then if you think about it, it's like, alright, they might be better than people are giving them credit for. And actually, a lot has been going on with the Clippers over the past couple of days. They just demoted Doc Rivers. Doc Rivers is no longer the president of basketball operations. He is now strictly the coach. I guess they felt like coaching and being the president of basketball operations was just too much for Doc Rivers to handle, and I do kind of agree. He wasn't terrible president of basketball operation or anything, but he didn't really do much since he took over the job. He insisted on bringing back the same exact team almost every single year, and I'm sure if it weren't for Chris Paul asking to be traded to the Houston Rockets, he probably would have done the same thing this year too. But of course, that isn't what happened. They traded Chris Paul to the Houston Rockets in exchange for Patrick Beverley, Lou Williams, Sam Dekker, and Montrezl Harrell. And at first, when that trade went down, people thought that the Clippers got boomed. People thought that the Houston Rockets robbed the Los Angeles Clippers. But if you take a look at it, they got some pretty solid players. And since Chris Paul was a free agent and could have left for nothing, the package they got in exchange for him was actually really good. Other than that though, they also signed Milos Teodosic, who was a European player who was said to be like another Ricky Rubio, except he can't play defense, but instead he has a reliable jump shot. So if that works out, that would be great for the Clippers. And then they also got their long coveted wing player as well in Danilo Gallinari, who can give you 20 points per game if healthy. Actually, that's the whole clause for this Clippers team, if healthy. And with the projected starting lineup of Teodosic, Beverley, Jordan, Griffin, and Gallo, that's not a bad starting 5 at all. I know people still expect them to make the playoffs next year, and I think most people have them finishing around 7th or 8th in the Western Conference. In my eyes though, even though they lost Chris Paul, this team still has the talent to compete for the 6th or the 5th, or maybe even as high as the 4th seed if everything goes well and they can stay healthy. Out of all the teams on the list though, this is the one that I feel the most certain about that they will surprise some people next year. With everything that's gone on in the Western Conference so far this summer, Paul George to OKC, Chris Paul to Houston, the Wolves making all their moves, the Nuggets have been severely overlooked. Last year, they were knocking on the door of the Western Conference playoffs, but had it not been for Jokic injuring himself down the stretch, missing like 7 games in the later part of the season, they probably would have made the playoffs over the Blazers. That and if Jokic started the entire season at center last year, they most definitely would have made the playoffs over the Blazers. So that's going to happen next year, so that's already a great boost. They did lose Danilo Gallinari, but that's not that big of a loss considering he wasn't part of their long-term plans, nor was he the biggest piece for them last year either. On top of that, they had one of the most underrated free agent signings this summer. No, the most underrated free agent signing this year in Paul Millsap. I can't think of a better power forward to pair next to Nikola Jokic than Paul Millsap, considering Millsap, like Jokic, can do everything on the court, both on offense and on defense, and is a very unselfish team first player. He's a guy you can slap onto any team and wouldn't have to worry about fitting him into the system. He's gonna fit in anywhere. And another thing is he's used to playing with another big man like Nikola Jokic. He used to be on the Atlanta Hawks with Al Horford, and to be honest with you guys, Nikola Jokic is like Al Horford Super Saiyan God mode times 10 Kaioken. Everything that Al Horford can do, Nikola Jokic can do 10 times better and more at the same time. So Jokic and Millsap are about to form one of the best front courts in the NBA next year. And they also have some other nice pieces as well. Jamal Murray started to come into his own towards the end of last season when they let him play more at the point guard spot. In the last month or so of the season, I believe he upped his scoring to 15 points per game and 5 assists per game. And then they have players like Gary Harris, Will Barton, Kenneth Faried, Jameer Nelson, and Wilson Chandler, all very serviceable guys that you can depend on every single night. They're just a good team overall, and I for sure expect them to make the playoffs next year and surprise a few people. Alright, look, as hard as this might be for you guys to believe, I'm not putting them on this list just because I'm a Pistons fan. I know on Twitter and stuff I make jokes about them going 82-0. I see myself as a realistic Pistons fan. If I don't think they're gonna do good, I wouldn't say that they're going to do good, but I think they're gonna do good. They had a terrible year last year. Awful. One of the most disappointing seasons I have ever endured as a Pistons fan. What did they finish, like 10th in the East? And this was the year they were supposed to progress after making the A seed last year? Yeah, it was all bad. But there was a reason for their badness. Reggie Jackson. A couple of years ago, back in the 2015-2016 season, one of the reasons they were so good was because of Reggie Jackson. Once he started to mess with the team really started to get it going. The Andre Drummond Reggie Jackson pick and roll was huge. Last year though, Reggie Jackson was awful, just about as bad as you can get for a starting point guard, but there was a reason for that. During the summer, he had surgery on both of his knees. He was out to start the season, but the Pistons got off to a bit of a rocky start, so they kind of rushed him back to try and help them out. It didn't work out so well, and Reggie Jackson really never got back to even close to 100% the rest of the season. He went from averaging nearly 19 points and 6 assists per game back in 2016 to only 14 points and 5 assists per game on 41% shooting from the field in 2017. Just awful. Andre Drummond and the rest of the team had a down year because of it. Look, this Detroit Pistons team is built around the Andre Drummond Reggie Jackson pick and roll. You take one of those guys out, or one of those guys aren't at full strength, and of course the team is going to struggle. However, next year Reggie Jackson is going to be back at 100%, which will help the team out. And on top of that, they also added Avery Bradley. This is a guy who both John Wall and Kyrie Irving, two of the most unguardable players in the NBA, have both come out and said that he is the guy that they hate being matched up against most. He is the defender that gives them the most problems. So he will be an upgrade at the shooting guard spot over Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. I expect them to bounce back kind of like the Rockets did last year. Not saying they're gonna win 55 games or even close to it, but I can see them bouncing back into the playoffs for sure. Another team that's in the same boat as the Detroit Pistons would have to be the Charlotte Hornets. Last year, they were disappointing, very disappointing. In the 2015-2016 season, they finished with a 48-34 record. They were in a 4-way tie in the Eastern Conference for the 3rd best record. And then they even took the Miami Heat to 7 games in the first round of the NBA playoffs. So last year we were expecting them to build upon that, win close to 50 games, and maybe even make the 2nd round of the playoffs. Didn't turn out like that. They started off the season pretty good. I think they won like 7 or 8 of the first 10 games or something like that. But after that, it just slowly started to fall apart and really kept falling apart for the rest of the year, despite Kemba Walker having his first All-Star worthy year, I guess. Just a bizarre season. However, this summer so far, they have done a couple of things to fix that. The biggest thing they got, literally and actually, was Dwight Howard. They boomed him from the Atlanta Hawks at the start of the summer for little to nothing. And Dwight Howard may not be the center that he used to be, but he is still a more than serviceable starting big man in the NBA, and much leagues better than anything the Hornets have had at the center position for quite some time. Last year, they were starting Cody Zeller at the center position. When teams saw Cody Zeller trying to hold down the middle, that was basically the Charlotte Hornets rolling down the red carpet for teams to come and destroy them in the paint. And that's exactly what happened night in and night out. The Hornets were 3-17 when Cody Zeller started at the center spot, but he's all they had, so they really didn't have much of a choice. So Dwight Howard will definitely help there. And then in the draft, they also got Malik Monk and Dwayne Bacon. Dwayne Bacon did show a lot of promise in the summer league. He could be a steal of the draft. Both those guys could greatly help Charlotte on the offensive end this year too. So I fully expect Charlotte to have a bounce back year too, especially considering how much weaker the Eastern Conference has gotten. But that's going to lead us to the question of the day. I gave you guys the teams that I think have the best chance to be surprising this year. Now I want to know what you guys think. What do you think the surprise team of next year will be and why? Let me know down in the comment section below, but now let's take a look at what you guys said in yesterday's video. And yesterday, after Kyrie Irving said that he's not willing to commit to any team that trades for him, I asked you guys, why you think he will come out and say that now, and if he's purposely trying to lower his trade value. And here is what you said. I think he's lowering his trade value so the team he goes to doesn't have to lose heaps, if you know what I mean. That's a good point too. Question of the day. I think you're mostly right, but I also think that he did it because the teams he wanted to go to might not have had the best offers, since they'll assume he resigned with them. Yeah, the man has to be up to something. I mean, who comes out and says they want to be traded and then says, I'm not going to commit to any team that trades for me? That's something normally that a player that doesn't want to be traded will say to make sure no one trades for him. I really think he's just trying to do his best to make sure he lands on one of the 4 teams that he wants to play for. Like always though, don't forget to leave your answer for today's question of the day down in the comment section below. But other than that, thank you once again for watching the video. Hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more daily NBA videos. And until tomorrow, keep getting the Bucks, Team STC, and I'm out of here.